Okay, right. So I'm going to go through another dream from my journal. So this one was on the 26th of October, 2024, and this is one that I'm going to call HELLSCAPE. So this is the only one of its kind I've ever had, and that's probably because when I do dream and request dreams in prayer, I always say, please protect me, because I don't want to be one of these people that has truly experienced hell, because it just looks absolutely terrifying, and I'm not sure if I could handle it. In all honesty, it's some of the dreams I hear are just absolutely terrifying, and so I'm incredibly thankful for those who have had those experiences and have been willing to share them. I imagine there's quite a few people who've had them and have just not been willing to share them just because it's just too intense. This wasn't too intense. This was kind of like a very much a kind of PG version, of something. But I'll get straight into it. I'm basically just going to try and just read it from my notes, really, rather than me generally, where I'll just normally just glimpse back at my notes just to sort of make sure I'm covering everything off. I'm just going to read it from my notes because I started reading it and it reads pretty well, to be honest, and I can actually work out what I wrote. So how this all starts then is I'm part of a kind of expeditionary for an expeditionary team, and we're traveling to some other place. It's kind of it's not on Earth, but it's I wrote down it was a little bit like Stranger Things. Weirdly, I mentioned Stranger Things in my last one, and then I just thought, oh, Hellscape, this is a bit interesting, and then I've written down Stranger Things again. So anyway, so it's a bit like that. So in Stranger Things, you've got what's called the Upside Down, which is a parallel universe to ours. Everything is, this is our Earth. Theirs is exactly the same, except it's all just decayed. Everything is decayed. So you've literally got decay floating in the air. It's always perpetually dark. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Thunder, lightning, all that kind of stuff, and there's horrible monsters that are around all the time. Okay, and in that, what happens is they use some technology that actually creates a bridge between these two worlds, and they actually send off an expeditionary force, like a person in a biosuit kind of thing, who goes off, on a tether through this kind of portal thing that they open up, and goes to explore what's going on, and every time, they get killed, obviously, because these monsters and things that are over there. So this was very much the same sort of thing. So if you imagine that, then you're imagining pretty much what I'm going to go through here. I haven't seen Stranger Things in a couple of years, I would have thought now, but I started to not really get into it quite as much. But so it's a very similar sort of thing. So we were part of this expeditionary team. There was lots of us, quite a few. I didn't see the portal that we were going through. I didn't see how we got there, actually. I don't remember. I mean, I may come across that, but anyway, we went through this portal to a parallel world. So we were going through to discover it, basically to explore this new discovery. We went through wearing these biosuits. I think they were kind of like yellow, kind of like radiation suit sort of things we were going through for safety. Obviously, this is a new area. We've got absolutely no idea what kind of potential diseases and bits and pieces could be in this parallel universe anyway. So oddly, I'm not sure of how, there we go. Oddly, I'm not sure how we actually got to the exploration site, but we ended up in this kind of facility of sorts. So obviously we've gone there. We've set up a base of operations, really like a big lab kind of thing that we're working out of, and we're just exploring from there. So we've got a base, so we're not just out in the open. We're kind of safe within a building. So once obviously we get into this facility, then we take off our suits. All the air is breathable. It's all danger free, and then so we started to explore this new world of sorts, mainly at a distance. So from the safety, as I said, from this facility, because obviously it was dangerous outside. So it's almost like being in a jungle where you've got wild animals around you, and you don't really want to be out there. You want to be in the safety, away from all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so from the facility we could basically look out the windows. So there's lots. It was a lot of glass, so that we could see everything that was out there. But this place was kind of in a perpetual kind of very low level of light. There wasn't much. It was very very dimly lit always, and we kept having these things that would bang against the windows, and it was almost like like a bat or a bird or something like that that just goes flying in and boom, against the window. And it was not that they were attacking or anything. It was just that we just had this new facility, and I guess they just weren't aware of it. A little bit like when you do see birds just hit your window, where they just, I don't know, just didn't see it, or they saw it as glass and thought they had further they could go through. Same sort of thing. So they're banging against the windows, but yeah, not to get in, but just unaware of the facility, I guess. But you'd also have other ones which were walking ones. So these weren't bird, bat-like things. These were kind of walking things that were similar to our human height, and they would be walking over and like peering in through the window and stuff. And it was kind of like, well, look, you're staring at us. We're going to stare at you. We're going to find out what you're all about if you're going to be looking at us. That was the kind of thing we got from them. But it was quite creepy because you'd be going about your work and then you'd have these things that were staring in through your window. I decided, as part of my stay, just so you know, so you've got teams that are coming in and they're being rotated out. So you'd only be in there for a certain amount of time, and then you'd go back home, maybe report your findings or whatever it was. I don't know whether there was any kind of communication through this kind of parallel universe. Probably not. And you're just on a schedule of rotating out and rotating in for periods of time. I decided that I was going to go out. I went out alone. Again, I had put my biosuit thing on, wander outside the facility. I didn't really walk too far, and actually I saw this huge sea. It was like I can't remember if it was a body of water or anything like that, but I wrote it down as being a huge sea, and it seemed to prevent us from escaping. So it was kind of like it was kind of almost not surrounding us, but it was in that direction. It was as far as you could see, basically. So. And it was only a short journey from where we had this facility. And as I said, we only had short stays in the facility, and then we'd go back to our homes, and then come back for a beer. It might be like 1 week on, 1 week off, something like that. I don't know. As I said, we rotated in, rotated out. So then it went to me actually going back home, and it showed the home that I was living at. So it looked like we were living on a kind of very much like almost like a US sort of farm, where it had that kind of vibe to me as like a US farm. But yeah, it was like a very much an agricultural sort of setting, big open land, nothing around us whatsoever, loads and loads of land, which was all our own land, and a very modest house, so not a massive house at all, just something similar to what we've got here. And I mean, we've got a 3-bedroom semi-detached house. This was detached, of course, but it wasn't huge, just a set kind of like wooden house, which again is what makes me think of the US, because the UK we just don't have wooden houses at all. So I had a feeling that, there we go. I should have just read on. I had a feeling that we were living in the USA, and as we were going about our sort of daily chores and stuff like that, working on this kind of farm sort of area, someone who was aware that I was exploring, as a scientist, so someone who was aware that I was exploring as a scientist was using salt, and they were putting salt around the place to kill weeds and stuff, and using vinegar, which is a bit weird. I don't know. I've never heard of using vinegar, but using salt to kill weeds which are outside the property. But it also had a double use, and it was to warn off evil spirits. Obviously, I don't believe in any of that crap at all. But in this, I was doing the same thing. I was, again, I guess putting like a ring of salt around the property, or putting salt in various places, that kind of thing. After discussing my job, where I was, and what we were up to, my wife wanted actually to move to the area on a more permanent basis. Why you would ever want to live where this was, I've got no idea why. But so we ended up actually outside of the facility, building our own house in this place, and the whole family all moved in. Yeah, as I said, it felt like I must have been away for long periods of time, and the whole family just wanted, we wanted to be together, rather than these big, long, extended periods of time that I was away, and then would come back for a short period of time, and then go for a long period of time, that kind of thing. I guess a little bit like somebody going on, the army, let's say, going on to another country for a period of time. The family comes with them and lives on the base or something like that kind of thing. Maybe it was something like that possibly. So the home itself I've got here was built very much like the facility, so it's all glass and maybe like plastics and metal and stuff like that. It wasn't made of brick or wood or anything like that. It was very strong. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. Very solid and not built with brick. It had things like airlocks, so it's very much like a lab environment. And yeah, more like a space station or a lab than a home. What was not yet obvious to me was that these walking creatures were actually demons. So before this, it was like we were exploring what it was like we were observing wildlife. We were doing experiments and bits and pieces. But again, I guess I hadn't been at this facility long enough to know that these were actually demons, proper demons. Yeah, we hadn't realised, but we had actually built a home in hell, so this place was actually, as I said, it's a hellscape, and these were all demons around in this weird kind of jungle-like environment. Being there more permanently now, we started to get harassed by these demons all the time. So they're looking in through the windows, they're banging on the windows, and this was obviously not what my wife thought it was going to be like at all. So obviously we're being terrorized. At the lab, it was just a curiosity. Now this is get out. We're going to scare you to the point that you leave, that kind of thing. So I must have talked of the place when I was going back home and being really enthusiastic about it, and look at these things that we're discovering, look at all this stuff. So I was saying it from a kind of an explorer, a scientist kind of viewpoint, and I was maybe blind to the reality of where we actually were. And I think she wanted, as I said, she wanted to move the family there to be closer to me, so that I was not spending so much time, extended periods away from them. Which shows how loving she is and what she was prepared to give up to keep the family together. But the banging and the staring was just getting too much, and she just wanted to move. After us only being there for a very short period of time, it made me think of the film Poltergeist. The original, was it 1970s film, where they get this lovely, beautiful new home that they move into, and they move into the house, and obviously. I think obviously they don't stay there for very long at all, do they? They move out to a hotel to live, and because obviously the disturbances, it was kind of like that. And then I just woke up. So woke up. Obviously, I was in this hell kind of place, but we were having a discussion around moving and getting out there. So thoughts. I've written down the thoughts. I haven't read these through. So again, this is all just reading it through from what I wrote at the time. So So my thoughts were, well, this was the first dream I'd ever had of hell, ever. But obviously it was very tame, very, very, very tame, of course. And I asked, and yeah, there you go. And I have asked, obviously, not to have hellish dreams. I don't necessarily specifically ask, show me this, show me that. I'm very open to what God wants to show me, and as obviously I've seen loads of war stuff, loads of prophetic, as in things that haven't happened yet but are written in the Bible that I've seen, other things that aren't necessarily in the Bible that I've seen, again, these nuclear attacks and stuff like that. But this, I've always asked to be protected, I guess, because I don't think I can handle it, if I'm completely honest. I put here, so I've always asked not to have hellish dreams. I don't know whether it speaks to my view of the demonic, given my exposure over the last 18 months, to be a bit desensitized to it. So I'm not fearful, really, of demons and stuff like that. I've had so many attacks over the last 18 months. I mean, I had one probably about 3 days ago. where I was kind of being. It was creepy. It was weird. It was a sort of spiritual attack. I reserve sleep paralysis for generally when I'm literally in my environment that I'm in reality. So I'm in my bedroom, and it often goes very black and white. The vision, it has a texture. The spirit realm has a texture to it. Um, when I get booted, so my spirit gets sort of booted out of my body by a demon pushing, which is weird, isn't it? It's like my physical body's there and a demon's kind of pushing my actual spirit out of my body. I roll off onto the bed, that kind of thing. Um, Roll off the bed onto the floor, that kind of thing, or I'm in the bed and I'm being strangled, all this kind of stuff. Strangled, there's sexual attacks. I haven't had many of those recently. They're more violent. The one I had a couple of days ago was weird. It was weird. It was, again, you get a knowing of what the demons are thinking and stuff like that, and it was really, really weird. I was kind of, this thing climbed on top of me and was hugging me. But it was like a bear hug. I said to my wife at the time, I said it was a little bit like the film Gladiator, where you've got Joaquin Phoenix, who's going to be the successor to Caesar, and Caesar's very, very old, very, very old, and he's going to die soon anyway, and Joaquin Phoenix, in his jealousy, actually ends up speeding along his demise, so he can basically take the position of Caesar before his father, who's going to be giving that position away to what's he called, Russell Crowe, in that scenario, who's not part of the family at all, but he just thinks he's going to be the best person to look after the empire. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't possess the attributes that would make him a good Caesar, and obviously plenty of Caesars of the past have been horrendous, obviously, and taken it by force and stuff like that. So this was in Gladiator. Was like, sorry to go into that, but what I mean by that is what he does, how he actually kills his father is he there's an embrace, and he's saying how much he sort of loves him and stuff like that, but he pulls so hard that he's basically suffocating his father, and his father dies of suffocation. That's what this attack was like. It was basically where it climbed on top of me, and it was actually saying, not that I have verbally heard it, but it was putting those thoughts in my mind. Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you so much, that kind of thing. And it was holding me and really, really holding me and like squeezing the life out of me. And I was kind of being choked. And then I came out of it really, really quick. But surprise, surprise, it happened when my wife was in the toilet. Almost all the time. I said this to my wife many times. 80%, 90% of the time when I get an attack, it's when my wife is out of the room. Because demons are very, very cowardly. Very, very cowardly. They don't want to be witnessed by anyone, so that nobody believes you. It's, oh, you just made it up. No, I didn't make it up. I was just attacked. Yeah, but sorry, I've got went off topic there, but yeah, I felt to the point now where I'm not really overly, I'm not scared. Obviously, when you're being strangled, you'll panic, of course, but you can always call on Jesus. So, I mean, a lot of the time, you get to the J of Jesus, and they're gone. They know what's coming, so they don't hang around. And sometimes they'll try and stick with it. You'll be trying to do Jesus, and if you're being strangled, obviously, like, nothing's really coming out. I've had ones where they put their hands in my mouth and like lifting my mouth up. I can literally feel the fingers in my mouth. Ugh, horrible. Being strangled from behind, choked out. I've had tons of stuff that's happened, which at some point I'm going to do maybe some kind of a compilation of spiritual attacks, just to give you guys a bit more, information about what these are actually like. And I've kind of mentioned it in various different videos, little bits and pieces, but as I have now. And actually, again, whether my wife wants me to mention this or not, I don't know, but she's actually experienced something. It was months ago now, but she actually saw a human height, just pure shadow, pure black shadow that was in the corner of our room. And I sort of said to her, well, what kind of vibe did you get from it? She said, oh, nothing really. No, she didn't get a bad vibe. She didn't get a good vibe from it. She sort of said, oh, maybe it's, a relative visiting. I'm like, black shadow, corner of your room? Doesn't sound very friendly to me. And I said, that's a demon. That is a demon that's there. And it's watching us. That's what they do. They watch, they listen, and they learn. And they use that information against you. So you can say certain things. I may well, because of saying this, I may well get an attack. You get a retaliation. I mean, I've had things where I've said to my daughter Jessica, I said, if you ever get a demon attack, don't even worry about it. Just call on Jesus. He'll smash. I say that Jesus has never turned up. I want to clarify that. But saying Jesus, they know they just got to get out of there. Yeah. So there's power in the name of Jesus, I suppose is what I'm saying. So my thoughts on that, as I said, this shadowy figure, shadowy figure, and I said, it's a demon. It is a demon. There's nothing. Relatives do not come and visit you. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. They're in one of two places. They're either in what's referred to as Hades, or we refer to as hell, or they're in heaven. It says, ever since Jesus came, you are either, once you die, you're present with Jesus, or you're not. And if you're not, it can be you're in utter darkness. So there's lots of different versions of hell that are described. The burning heat of hell and all that kind of stuff. The darkness, but you've got one that's utter darkness, which is pitch black, and you get that one as well. But yeah. Sorry. I'm wandering off topic. What else did I have? What else we got? There's not really anything. I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? It is. It's a dream. It's a dream where it was a hellscape. I mean, it was not this world. It was another parallel kind of universe sort of thing. As I said, it was like a jungle kind of area. These scientists were naively exploring it, and who knows if anything came back through. I know that there's been some people talking about, like what's it called, the Hadron Collider, and how they. If you've not seen it, you look up the opening ceremony for the what's it called, the Large Hadron Collider in is that Switzerland? Is it Luxembourg? It's somewhere around there, isn't it? Wherever it is, that was really dodgy. Really, really, really dodgy, pagan, weird ritual that went on there, and there's some very strange stuff to do with that. But people talk about, there's stuff that's actually quite recent that I saw that was talking about there was certain particles that smashed together, which were kind of like foreign particles, and they reacted in a way that they've never ever seen any other particle ever react before, and it was causing all sorts of problems with their instruments. They're having to recalibrate, and they're kind of worried to a certain extent, and I think they shut it down. So how safe is it? But it kind of made me think about that as well. So I don't know, who knows what experimentation in stuff that is quite extreme could potentially do in creating some sort of a bridge between here and some sort of hellscape. But I don't think it will ever happen. And again, I think those kind of things, maybe they're probably just sensationalized anyway. But interesting anyway. But yeah, hopefully that was interesting. I'm trying to keep these down, but I just can't stop talking about stuff and making connections with other things. Apologies if that irritates you. But I've always got things that kind of come off from dreams that I have, because the more and more dreams I'm sharing, the more and more I can link into other dreams that I've actually already put on, that I can say, oh yeah, that's very similar to that dream, or that's very similar to that dream, and I keep going off of it, or I go into scripture and then start going off on that. So apologies. if you stopped just at me finishing the dream, fair enough, not a problem. Hopefully that was interesting. As I said, one and only Hellscape one I've ever had. I don't necessarily want any more, but there we go. All right, thanks for your time. I'll see you again soon.